Welcome to Real Talk, Real Women, Breaking the Silence Around Abuse. I am Gemma Serenity Gorokov, your host, and today we have a special guest I love particularly, Catherine Sipher. She is a remote piano teacher. Thank COVID for that, because you really have to find ways to keep on teaching and building music when actually the entire world is closed, right? Okay, so let's start by the beginning. Catherine, can you please introduce yourself a little bit about your life with an emphasis on the kind of abuse you overcame in your life?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Catherine Sipher. I am a remote piano teacher with Blossom Piano Studios, where I bring the joy of music into hearts and homes. And I am also an author and a poet of the book Barely a Whisper, Poems from the Heart of a Woman Rebecoming. And my story in both of these situations is really the story of overcoming self-abuse and the ideologies that I allowed myself to latch onto and the limitations that those ideologies came, and then learning how to break free from that and find my true inner voice and my own inner hero.
Mm. I think that so many people can relate to that. The ideology you really like absorb and allow yourself to be everything about that actually you lose yourself in it. You lose your own identity. There is no more identity. There is just like, okay, I plug. I am whatever you say I am. All right. Yeah, no, there is more. So tell us maybe a little bit more about that identity fusion with an ideology. What's that?
Yeah, so I found myself at the beginning of 2019 kind of at a crisis point in my marriage. That wasn't just a crisis point in my marriage, but it ended up being a crisis point for my entire identity and understanding of my worldview. And I realized that what I had been believing and dedicating my life to in terms of ideologies was really damaging to who I was as a person, and that I had really lost all aspects of who I was because of these ideologies. Now, granted, I was a very busy mom of 6 children. At that point, my youngest was 4 months old, and I was homeschooling everybody. So it's very easy to get lost in all of that mix and to lose your sense of yourself for sure. But it was other ideologies that were telling me that I didn't matter, that my voice didn't matter, that even my thoughts and my voice was not to be trusted, and that I needed to live in a certain way for others that really kind of kept me in a situation that was not tenable for the long term.
If you have 6 children, that means that you have 6 people looking up on you, you looking up at you or on you, not sure exactly how to say that, to actually learn how to be. So, what was that pivotal moment when you realize, oh, I am an example for them? If I continue that way, they will also develop that kind of self-abuse. I have to do something about that. What was that pivotal moment for you?
Yeah, there was a moment in the chaos of what, in the debate and the discussions of whether we were going to get divorced or not, that I still couldn't see a way forward for my life. I wasn't sure, like, how am I going to do this? I'd always been a stay-at-home wife for 19 years and then a stay-at-home mom to these kids. And my oldest, I think, was only 13, 12 at the time. So that was really all I knew. And I'd never really had a job. I had taught piano in my own piano studio, but it kind of set that aside while I was homeschooling my children. And there was a moment where I went running, and I guess content warning about suicidal ideation, but I went for a run and was screaming and yelling while I was running. And this was
Um,
like I can't remember if it was right before COVID hit or right after, but I was screaming and yelling and crying. And I found myself at the local cemetery and lay down right next to one of the stones and just wanted to get swallowed up. Just if the ground could just take me whole, then I won't have to worry about any decisions I have to make. And maybe that'll solve my problems. The mosquitoes eventually got to me, and so I stood up. I don't want to get eaten by the mosquitoes, so much for that. But I came back home. But it was that moment of, oh my gosh, I thought that thought. My life is in such a place right now where that is my seems to be my only solution, that's not a solution. That's not going to be helpful for my children. So I need to find a solution that will work, because this current life and the current way that I'm living is not the way I'm going to be able to move forward, and is certainly not going to be helpful for my children. So what am I going to do instead? And that was one of the pivotal moments in my life that really helped me begin to make changes. At that point in my life, thankfully, I think I was already a few months into journaling. Um, but without that journaling, I don't know how I would have found a way out.
Yes, journaling, I heard many, many times how cathartic it can be, how you build self-awareness through journaling, like becoming aware of your own thought. Then you can actually choose to change them, can take a step back, can read them back. And it's like, whoa, is that? I mean, and then realize how far-fetched it is oftentimes to actually come back to something much more sensitive and not sensitive, sensible, to actually choose to think about. And I mean, I acknowledge that at some point you did not see value to your life to the point that you wished to be out of life without attempting to remove your life from yourself, just like hoping it goes away. It's really funny to come with a mosquito to say, yeah, can I eat you? No. Okay, bye.
I know, right? It's a little mosquito that got me going, thankfully. Yeah, there's moments I remember having when years before, when I'd actually get a break from my children and I'd drive the 1.5 miles to the grocery store, and the silence of the car was deafening. I didn't have the radio on. It would just be me in the car, and I could still hear the echoes of the children's cries and screams and, calls for help or whatever. And those moments were almost terrifying for me back then, because I didn't have the space and the opportunity to hear my own thoughts. So when I started on this journey that I've been on, the first step was really learning to identify that I even have thoughts. I couldn't even identify that there were thoughts that were independent from, I have to do this for these people in my life, or what is this society and culture that I live in telling me that I should be doing with my time and my thought life and everything. So giving myself freedom to pull out a journal and to write out stream of consciousness, whatever happened to be on the top of my mind, to put it on the paper. It was, for a while there, it was almost like I couldn't think unless I had a pen in my hand to help me think. And what, to your point, I was able to then months later kind of come back and look through my journal and do a little bit of that analysis and look for those little bits of glimmers of hope. Where were there seeds planted of ideas, of solutions to my problems? And what were some common themes? And where did I say, oh, I need to do this with my life? And so coming back later, retrospectively, and kind of looking at it, helped me provide a plan to move forward. And when I look at where I am now versus 5 years ago, some of the things I'm doing now are a direct result of those just barely bits of a whisper that were in those first journal pages. So I think journaling has been a super powerful way to overcome that self-abuse by, yes, first of all, even recognizing I have thoughts, identifying them, and then beginning to change that narrative. Once I noticed that I was circling in the same negative spiral for a while, like, does this feel good to stay here? No. Okay. What can I begin to say differently about myself or about the situation that can help rewrite that story in the narrative?
Gorgeous. Tell us again the name of your book, your poetry book that you just published.
Called Barely a Whisper: Poems from the Heart of a Woman Rebecoming.
How beautiful. How beautiful. You really speak into that awakening, self-awakening journey, like awakening to yourself, coming back to your own core, to your identity, to who you truly are as a woman, as a man, as a someone, as a soul. Wow. Self-abuse is a real thing. It's a real thing. We oftentimes talk about narcissistic abuse and all this other stuff, like when other people abuse us. But the truth is that to have other people to abuse you, you have to abuse yourself first. And when that is there, then anything and anyone and even life can feel abusive. When you allow yourself to go there and when you actually shift your narrative and start to talk about empowerment, about joy, about gratitude, about appreciation, about happiness, it's like none of the self-abuse exists anymore. Only that of that higher vibration actually connects with you.
Right. And now I'm so much more aware because of this process of learning to journal and notice the thoughts and shift and be more aware of the words that I use. I'm a lot more aware when I start feeling small, or what I've even noticed is I've noticed to tune into my tears when I'm crying, and then ask myself questions about the tears, because sometimes, like yesterday, I was crying joyful tears, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this has happened, whatever the situation was, like, this is amazing, I'm just so full of joy. But sometimes the tears are signs for me, at least personally, of self-betrayal. Is it because I'm saying, oh, I can't have this thing in my life? Well, who is saying I can't have that thing in my life? Is it because I have then limited myself in that? Have I adopted an ideology for myself that is contrary to life for me? And sometimes those tears for me are that sign of, oh, Catherine, you've headed down that path of self-betrayal again. Check that. You're grieving over something you don't need to grieve, because you can create that thing that you're grieving over. So tears have been powerful, but then that process again of really thinking through what I'm feeling and experiencing in my body through journaling sometimes will help me find those answers and say, oh, right. This is not the path I want to go. I put myself here with my own thoughts, and I can undo that.
Look at that. You truly show the way back to yourself, basically.
Yes, so the book, I don't know if you've heard of it, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, was instrumental in my change in my life and my transformation. Someone had recommended it to me, and because I was a musician, the word artist struck out to me, but I think it's a really powerful tool for anybody. I truly think really that all of us are artists in some way or form. Like, there's art and creativity in all of us. It just might look different in us. It might not look like the traditional arts, but we all have some form of creativity somewhere, and so I think it's helpful for everyone. But she recommended two really important things that I latched onto, and one was that stream of consciousness journaling that I've talked about. Just, she calls them morning pages, writing 3 pages, just letting yourself get it out, whatever is there, brain dump, just whatever. Don't judge it, just put it on the paper, whatever. And then later coming back and kind of looking at it, like I said. But the other thing was these artist dates, giving yourself permission to begin to feel and experience the world, taste your food, smell the flowers, little things that bring you back to your senses. She had in there, it's like a 12-week workbook kind of style. She had us asking questions like, what's your favorite color, what's your favorite food, what's your favorite whatever. And I didn't have answers to those things. I had lost touch with myself so much. I didn't really taste my food. I remember the first time I really tasted a warm cup of peppermint tea and felt like I was in heaven. Like, oh my gosh, what is this? Where has this been? Because I think I just eat because you have to eat. I don't really always sit to savor it. And I'd lost so much touch with myself. I wasn't even sure what color was my favorite color, or what shade of blue was my favorite color. So learning how to kind of tap into those things has been part of the journey too. But for me personally, I never would have gotten there if I hadn't been writing to heal. I think there's a line, something about in Hamilton. I think there's a line about we write ourselves out of the storm. We will write ourselves out of this problem. And that was basically what I was doing. Anytime I had a free moment, it was me and my pen and my journal, writing anything that I could. And that was the process of, yes, hearing what's up here. What do I want? What are my dreams? What are my desires? What are my longings? What are my passions? I didn't know any of that until I started journaling.
Fabulous. Fabulous. That's a testament to really dive into writing our life. What we feel it is and what we want it to be, and close the gap. And
Exactly.
you closed the gap through music, did you?
Yeah, so for me, a big part of my story was also returning to music. So I studied music as a student and a child and went to music school, um, had a piano studio in my early 20s, and then I had all these children and let that slide. And so as I was facing a divorce and not having had a career and a job, I knew I needed somehow to support my family. Wasn't sure how to do that. And again, the journal came in, do I go to school? Do I do this? Do I that? I don't know what to study. And then I realized, oh, right, you're a musician. You love teaching. Why don't you explore that as an option? And but the only problem was that we were at the height of COVID, and literally the world had shut down, and we weren't even allowed on nature trails, which was horrific. And I don't know why they shut those down, but middle of April 2020, so a month into COVID, I threw a Facebook post together and said, "Hey, let's try remote piano lessons. I don't know if this is going to work, but let's give it a try." And it worked, and I'm still doing it 4.5 years later. And the biggest gift for me with coming back to teaching was not just that I'm doing my passion, I'm doing what I love and what I'm really good at, but because I'm doing it online, I'm doing it on a Zoom screen where you've got the Hollywood squares, and my students have their screen up. I have my screen up. We both have one usually on the piano as well, so I can see their hands and I can demonstrate things. But it's very easy to get distracted by seeing your own face on Zoom. And so what I saw was my face took almost another appearance. My eyes were lighting up. There was a smile on my face. And I had tangible evidence of where my joy was and where my strengths were right there on the screen. And I could see myself interact with each student in a different way based on their needs and their personalities and their ages and their difficulty level. And I realized that I was home. This is not all of who I am, but this is a part of who I am. And it brought me back to myself and remembering parts of who I was that I had abandoned. Part of that self-abuse was I had abandoned even owning the title of musician. I had gone as far to say I'm a former musician. So to come back and claim that title again was really healing.
Wow. Yeah, it doesn't exist. I'm a former musician. That doesn't even ring anyhow true. It's not even possible. You either are a musician because at least for a while you did train yourself, or you are not a musician, therefore you have not trained yourself and it's not your thing. But like, I'm a former musician. No, that doesn't ring true.
Right? I
I'm
know
so
now.
happy and grateful for you to have actually tapped back into your power, your superpower. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
I think it felt more comfortable for me at the time to call myself a former musician than to claim the word musician and know that I wasn't doing the work of being a musician. And yes, now I agree that's ridiculous. You can be a writer and not actively write right now. You can be a musician and not actively play music. But that was the way that I had to frame my life and my thought life in order to kind of compartmentalize, like, oh, I don't do that now. And it, as self-betraying as that was, it was some like a coping mechanism I almost had to have in order to deal with the fact that I had betrayed that part of myself. And I realized one of the things that helped me get back into it was I was noticing that when the house was empty during all that, the hardest part of the divorce process, when the house was empty, I was at the piano playing the saddest songs I could possibly find. And I realized, oh, there's something here that I've been ignoring. I'm tapping back into that, the beauty of the music and that it can heal my soul. And if that's where I'm running to, then I need to explore that as part of my future.
That's fabulous. Catherine, tell us the last time the name of your studio, and more exactly the name of your website that leads to your music studio.
Yeah, my piano studio is called Blossom Piano Studio because I really believe that when you're learning an instrument, it's not just about learning an instrument and mastering it and pursuing excellence, but it's really about the blossoming of a person. And at the same time, I believe that we can all access music to some extent and grow personally through the tool of learning how to play an instrument. So I have students as young as 4 right now, all the way up through adults. And I particularly love working with the adult population because they're people like me that have been on a journey, that have maybe let it rest for a while, or they're finally fulfilling those bucket list items of things that they wanted to do. And it's usually part of their personal growth story of, they are choosing this for themselves now. This is not the parent saying, oh, you're going to learn music. This is that's choosing to engage in this beautiful art form.
Beautiful. Catherine, I'm so happy and grateful to have you on the show today. Real talk, real women, breaking the silence around abuse. Self-abuse is a real thing. If you feel yourself abusing yourself, like self-abuse, talking yourself down, betraying your true self, come back to your senses, start to journal, follow that stream of consciousness. Beautiful words to really say, like, put your thoughts on paper and observe so that you can start to come back to yourself. And of course, Catherine is available to help you find yourself back. I am available to help you find yourself back through music, through connections, through love, through energy healing, through all kind of modalities. We will find the right thing for you or the right people for you. Reach out. Thank you.